Hello, monsters and Magitech armor. My name is TV Sky, and welcome back to Final Fantasy VI Advance. So if you remember last time, we went through the opening tutorial area. I blabbered on a lot about cinematic storytelling and tile-based sprite graphics and all kinds of stuff that I'm probably not that qualified to talk about, and just tried to talk a little bit about why I like this game. And I came up with some funny voices for the characters that I hope I'm gonna be able to hold on to and remember. And we'll get occasional little glitches like that because we're playing on an emulator. Hello! I am recording this video before the first episode of the thing goes live, so I have no idea how people are going to be responding to this. I hope it's good! Because they'll like and comment and subscribe, please! And if nobody watches these things and nobody wants to see me go through the game, I mean, I'm going to keep going for a bit, but, you know, if no one watches them, eventually probably I'll have to replace them with something else a little bit, maybe, or maybe I'll just get stubborn and complete the entire game anyway and make the few people who are following me very happy, hopefully.
We'll see, I'll figure it out.
Anyway, we have exited the Kingdom of Figaro, escaped the clutches of Kefka and his Magitech henchmen, and now, King Edgar, where are you headed, sire? Through the cave and eastward to South Figaro. We'll then make for the returner headquarters in the north. Return to the castle and pass the word along. Understood, sire. Take care. See, this is one place where the GBA really gets outdone by the SNES. The SNES has these voices. Like that. That's made with synthesized voices on the SNES, and they just sound better. Anyway, recovery spring. Thank God, because there's a random encounter immediately. Now, random encounters are one thing that I'm pretty okay with later, like, newer versions of JRPGs kind of getting rid of, or at least making it so that if like, there's enemies around, you can choose whether or not you want to fight them, and that right there is why Edgar is the best character in the early game, because he can do massive AoE damage to every single goddamn enemy for free, every single turn, no mana required, no nothing. Which is vastly overpowered, if we're honest. Still. So, if you remember last time, we talked about how treasure chests and stuff like that, if you leave them in the early parts of the game and don't pick them up, then in the later parts of the game you can come back and get something way better. That applies in this cave as well. And so that's what we're going to be doing. And again, if this was me attempting my normal playthroughs, like the ones that never go anywhere and which I never finish, and there's the treasure chest I was talking about, I would be grinding in here because Edgar can just decimate every group of enemies that you come across. And it's a great way to get some experience on Locke and Terra. But we're not going to mess around too much. This time around. Although, oh god. Yeah, the encounter rate in this game can sometimes be a little high. And it kind of needs to be, because like I said, this is a game of the classic JRPG stripe. The one where, like, yeah, there's gonna be times where grinding is necessary, where you need to grind a bunch of levels, or indeed a bunch of, like, other kind of skill points, basically, which is something that's going to be introduced later on in the game, in order to gain new abilities. And at that point, you become, I won't say grateful, but at least it's like the high encounter rate has a purpose. Yeah, it's less ideal. Again, just absolutely murders them. And again, there's lots you can explore in here. There's lots of treasure chests you can find, but we're leaving them all. And we're supposed to head for town right now, but I've got something else in mind. And again, Yoshchaka Amano's excellent monster designs on display in the sprite work. Like, the people who converted his artwork into sprites, it's a lot of work to get, like, because Yoshitaka Amano, if you look his concept art up online, and there's so very much of it, it's really elaborate, and it's also very wispy and airy, and it has this kind of ethereal quality to it, this painting-like quality, like it exists in a very different kind of world. And that's really fucking hard to translate into colorful, cartoony video game sprites. And so one of the wonderful things about early Final Fantasy aesthetics is that they exist in that uneasy middle ground where they are pulling so hard on a very painterly and very influenced by very traditional Japanese art style. Like, traditional Japanese art is hugely influential in the development of early Final Fantasy. And they sort of try to convert that into cartoony 2D sprites. And that's what gives early Final Fantasy that very distinctive look. What's that smell? So we've just found this house out in the middle of nowhere. Remember how Edgar had a twin brother? These flowers. He always liked these. These dishes. They're just like the ones he always used. And this tea, it was his favorite. And we're just gonna steal a potion from him. And sleep in his bed. Like it's the Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And I don't know why Sabin has 3 beds in his house. It's not really clear. Can't remember, is the item there? No. Could Sabin be living here? Hey. Do you happen to know where I could find the man who lives here?
Sure do. Left a couple of days ago, soon as I heard Master Duncan had been killed. Headed up into the mountains. They say Duncan's son Vargas is missing too. I don't like it one bit.
This, by the way, is also entirely optional. Like, you never have to come here. Ever. And a lot of people don't, but I wanted to come here because I think it's kind of a lovely little scene. Anyway, to Figaro! Wow, who's that dark and mysterious stranger? That looks interesting. I bet that's gonna become important. He's one of my favorite characters in the whole game. Right, no reason to go chocobo riding, because it's kind of useless in the game, to be honest, which is something that's a bit of a pity, because chocobo riding is something that has a bit more use. Like in Final Fantasy V, chocobo riding is well integrated into the narrative, but not so much here. Let's see, is there anything on the docks? I can't actually remember. This ship isn't going anywhere. No, nothing in the barrels? No, okay, fine. Let's just hurry ourselves along a bit. I can play this music on the guitar, by the way. It's one of the first complicated melodies I ever learned to play. Well, relatively complicated. One of the best pieces of music in the game. This is one of the few pieces that sounds better on the GBA. At least I think so. Like that clean whistle. It's so good. Kids aren't allowed in here? Okay, fine. That man at the calendar's got a nasty look about him. I hear the Empire's been invading one town after another. I wonder how safe we are in South Figaro. Duncan's been training his boy Vargas along with his other students. He's always grumbling about how the kid never seems to be making any progress.
You look just like that student of Duncan's.
Right, ignore us and maybe we'll just disappear. Back off, Locke. That guy looks familiar. Yeah, that's him, all right. He comes and goes like the wind, swearing allegiance to no one. Hidden behind his wintry gaze lies a face known to none who live. He's such a good character in this game. And he, too, is not entirely an optional character, but largely. Like, it's possible to not ever learn his story, really. That's Shadow. He's an assassin. He'd kill his own best friend for the right price. Guess we better stay clear of him. No. Leave us. The dog. Leave us. The dog eats strangers. Let's do a whisper voice for him. That'll definitely not be hard on my throat. Let's see, were there any items down here? I don't remember. I think there's one over here? Nope, wrong. Out of my way, I gotta get this cider over to the old timer. Cause see, some of us have jobs. Now scram! And this too, completely optional little scene that you can find. But it's something that actually becomes really important at a later point in the game. Okay, I don't really need to heal, do I? No, because it's not like I took real damage. Let's see. Optimize, optimize, optimize. There we go. I don't remember if there's any items around here. Figaro Castle stood up to the Empire? Great, now we'll all be drawn into this. Well, be glad we'll have that conversation in bed, my friend. Let's see. There isn't an elixir in this clock, as I remember. Nope, okay. Like I said, part of the point of me doing a playthrough like this is that I haven't actually played the game like it's the first time in a long time. I haven't actually done all the exploration because I know where the items I want are, and I kind of just ignore everything else. So, sprint shoes, those would let me run fast, but I don't really need them. Kinda want silver spectacles. I kinda want a lot of those, actually, but I'll take 2 for now. So those are relics, which are accessories, basically. And they can help prevent you from being blinded. And Edgar kind of doesn't need it because his tools always hit. So if he's blinded, you can just use tools instead. See, that's the merchant, the guy we talked to there, who has to get the cider over to the old man. He's walking there, and he goes into this house down here, and that's something again that'll become really important later on. And here's where the grindiness of this game begins to assert itself a little bit, because in order to have proper equipment on your characters, you are going to have to spend quite a bit of cash. Fortunately, we have an ether, which we can sell for a bit of money. And a dagger. And 3 sleeping bags that we're not going to use. And that should be just enough. To get me a bit of better equipment. Yeah, we're going to do a little grinding, just a bit, to get enough money for all the things I want. Because I do want to have, I do want to have my gear optimized, because when you're trying to do a sort of non-grindy run of this game, like playing through this game in a slightly non-grindy way, because it needs to be palatable for a Let's Play, you're not gonna be over-leveled for things. Let's put it that way. Like, you're not gonna be too high level for certain boss fights and for certain encounters. Let's see, I know one of these has a... There we go, teleport stone. Thank you. And like I said, I don't want to abuse the dash in this game too much, but sometimes, every once in a while, just a little bit. There we go. Because we're going to go in here. And again, I'm abusing the fact that I have knowledge from later in the game to find all kinds of hidden secrets. I wonder if it'll really come to war. Maybe I should return home now before it's too late. Let's see, this only leads outside to there, right? There's a phoenix down in that thing. But yeah, if I remember correctly, you can actually... Yes! You can actually get down here and grab another elixir. And I can't remember if there's anything in the boxes and pots, though. No? And see, that's a secret passage, which you're not supposed to find yet. But which, if you want to, you can use to get over here and out of the house where that merchant with the cider went in. And again, all of this is going to come in handy way later. I'm just showing it off right now because I know all the secrets. Anyway, the secret I'm actually here for... The city's eastern border, so attacking from there... Hey, what do you think you're doing, barging in here when I'm trying to write a letter? Sorry. I may be the richest man in town, but even that doesn't keep me from getting startled.
I wonder what kind of letter he is writing about
The city's walls and defenses.
I wonder what kind of person he is,
being a rich man. Anyway. Secret passage behind the bookcase. Which you're not supposed to find yet, but which I know. And even more, secret passage down here. Which leads to a dungeon. Which has hyper wrist. And Hermes sandals. And I think it's not here that there's another thing, right? Just gonna have to check, because I don't completely remember if it's this... No, okay, it's a later area. Anyway, I just got 2 incredibly powerful relics. That one basically boosts my strength massively, and that one gives me permanent haste. And actually, no, I should put that on Edgar for the moment, because he needs to be able to use his machine tools as often as humanly possible. Anyway, moving on to grab a few more secrets. $500 gil. These treasure chests don't contain anything better later on in the game. 1,000, 1,500, and nothing. And I can't remember if any of these contain potions or anything. I don't think they do. So we're just moving on. Those clocks don't contain elixirs either. So yeah, I'm trying not to abuse my knowledge too much. But I do want those 2 items because they're actually... Like, the power that they give me is actually kind of important if we're doing a non-grindy kind of run. I keep saying run like this is a speed run. It's emphatically not a speed run. This is gonna take a while. Anyway, that's enough of me abusing game knowledge. Let's actually go and do the thing that we came here to do, which is... spend the money we just picked up on buying the last bit of gear. And a few items. And once we're done with that, we'll move on with the story. I love this music, though. I especially love the use of bass in the soundtrack of this game. Like you can hear it. You heard in the opening theme to the game, like that. The game likes to hit the bass at the same time as, for example, drums. My work here is done. You're in my way. Move it. That's the cider guy. Let's see. The thing I actually came here for. I can't remember if she's down here. No, she's not. Okay. There's a story NPC who has a little bit of information about the story that's worth picking up. But not essential. Like, everything I've done in here right now, all of it. Like, meeting Shadow, buying relics, all that stuff. Everything in here, completely optional. And again, that's something that I'm so missing. Like, that's one of my favorite things about Final Fantasy VII as well, is how much of that game, really, when you get down to it, is completely optional. I should get a few eye drops. Like, how much of the game you can really just skip, you don't need to do, but there's all this optional stuff for you to explore and find if you want to. The big house at the north end of town belongs to the richest family here. This town's defenses are tight. Even with their magic armor, the Imperials won't find it easy to get inside. Indeed. My husband, Duncan, is a martial artist. He's famous even in Figaro to the north. He took his students to Mount Colts for some meditation and training, so he probably won't be back for a while. She, then, is unaware that her husband is dead. And there's a save point down here, for some reason. I don't actually know why. I can't remember. Yeah, that's gonna happen a few times. Emulator stuff. But yeah, again, all this stuff about Duncan and Vargas and Sabin and like Duncan dying and stuff like that. All of that again is optional information, and that's also a criticism that you can make of the game, is that if you just kind of proceed without going to the towns and talking to people and investigating stuff for yourself, it's kind of possible to be really freaking confused at certain points in the game where you're like, what, how, why is this happening? I don't understand. But yeah, do I want to grind out here or in the mountain? I think we'll grind in the mountain, actually. Because out here we don't get large groups. And I'm gonna need that money! Another thing, by the way, I should mention, is that in the original Final Fantasy IV SNES, there's a game system that isn't working. Like, that straight up just isn't working. It's a particular stat. I think it's magic evasion doesn't work, and, like, magic defense is incorrect. Like, it's got a math error somewhere in it, so that it doesn't reduce damage correctly, and so there's a whole bunch of imbalances in the game. And they are also fixed in the port, which is another reason to play that over the original SNES version. Because, like, the stats just work as they're supposed to, which is, like, kind of a big deal. But, like, it wasn't like Final Fantasy VI, the original, was ruined by those bugs or anything. It was just an annoying inconsistency where you could have a really high value in a certain stat, and it just wouldn't matter, because the stat didn't do anything. Ooh, ouch. Not good. But yeah, this game is also harder than a lot of modern Final Fantasies. Like, objectively speaking. There's a lot of times in this game where enemies can genuinely screw you the fuck up. Like, if you get hit by some, like, a random crit at some point you're not expecting to, yeah, you can get in trouble. Okay, healing, please. Thank you. My gosh. Do I want him to have it, or... I don't think Terra can actually equip it, can she? No. He can have that. It's a knife with some extra defenses and evasion, which is very good, actually, especially for this early in the game. This game has a really solid battle theme. It's kind of a pity that fights are quick, because you never really get to hear it. But it's got that classic Final Fantasy battle theme bass line. Which is like da na 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 na. Which is iconic to early Final Fantasy games. And which Nobuo Uematsu has been trying to keep going, like, throughout all of the games. Like, every time he's been writing the battle theme, he's tried to bring that motif with it into various generations of Final Fantasy. Yeah, I don't think it's in 15, for example, because that doesn't really have a battle theme as such. And I don't think it's in 12 either. But I don't know if it's in 14 and 13. I can't actually remember. Oh, who's this mysterious figure? Let me know in the comments, by the way, if it's annoying when I act all like, haha, I already know what's gonna happen next because I know this game inside and out. Like, if that's annoying, I'll tone it down. It's mostly because I'm excited to well, tell you how I feel about it. But yeah, in this game, you do have to mind your HP. Like, you can genuinely get screwed over by normal enemies if you don't take time to heal and recover after a fight. Which is something that I don't feel like we get in a lot of modern JRPGs because they have so many quality of life changes. Like, the game design has kind of moved on. Where, like, a lot of difficulty in this game is also kind of tedious. Like I said, there's a pretty high encounter rate in this game. And, like, Terra right now is actually on the verge of death. And if I'm very lucky, she's not gonna die. Like, the encounter rate can be very tedious, and it can be a lot, like, and the need for grinding can be really kind of distressing to have to deal with. But it's also, like, this is something that Foldable Human Dan Olsen talked about in his latest video, that there is a value to, like, this outdated game design that like changes your relationship with the game that you're going through. And it's not always accurate just to say, oh, well, everything is better now because we've improved the quality of life and we've done all these optimizations and we've taken all this busy work out of a lot of the game. And that stuff's just not always true. Sometimes these things were there because they added value to the game. Like, there is more of a sense of peril, I think, in random encounters, especially early in this version of in this Final Fantasy game, than there is in games like 15, where even early on, like, even when your party is supposedly at their weakest, they're still pretty handily taking out large groups of enemies. And games are sort of, in game design nowadays, at least I feel, the decision has been made to focus a lot harder on making the player feel powerful, which is not wrong. Like, there's no old man yells at cloud here. It's not that I'm saying, oh, kids these days don't want to do the hard work of playing the difficult games. Because, like, Super Meat Boy exists, like, lots of difficult games exist. But we have a different relationship with what difficulty is supposed to look like. Which, again, something that Foldable Dan Olsen talked about in his latest video about World of Warcraft. Oh, by the way, one neat little detail. Every character, or well, most of the characters, have different tent sprites. When you use a tent in the game, they'll have different sprites for the tent that each of them prefers, which is a lovely little inconsequential detail, but still very fun. Okay, so it seems to be every single time I try to save, we get that little glitch. But yeah, that, like, the test of skill in a game like Final Fantasy VI is more about, okay, have you properly explored your environment? Have you found all the, like, enough optional items, or have you grinded enough that you could buy a bunch of potions so that you can go through this entire mountain area and keep your party healed up? Like, can you do that kind of forward planning? Was a lot of the gameplay for games like these, and they could be very frustrating in that if you get, like, to this point, this far into this freaking dungeon area, like this mountain, and then you get wiped by a couple of unfortunate critical hits and, like, some unfortunate unforeseen circumstances. That, with, like, having to reload a save after that is like, oh my fucking god, really? Do I have to? Like, that could be very unfun. And the fact that status changes persist after a fight, which is something that I feel like a lot of JRPGs have largely abandoned. Like, all of that stuff can lead to a lot of frustration and a lot of kind of, I just want to play. I don't want to have to deal with all these systems and all these menus and stuff. And I think it's valid, like, that game design has kind of moved on from that and made different decisions generally, especially about big budget titles nowadays. But I do miss some of, oh my god, stop poisoning me. I do miss some of it. Not all of it. Some of it. Okay, characters are gaining levels a bit. It might be worth grinding a bit before this boss fight, though. Because there's a boss fight right down here. On the other hand, he's a bit of an event fight, so you can actually kind of cheese your way through it. Okay, I'll give it a shot. And if we die, then I get to demonstrate the frustration that is possible. From having to do reloads in this game. Was that the mystery man we saw earlier? He looks a little different than that silhouette. Let's go find out, eventually. Because encounter rate... Just don't poison me and I'll be happy, okay? I should have bought more antidotes. See what I mean? Like, the game is testing you on your ability to prepare for the stuff. Oh my god, you're gonna be encountering. This is unusually high for the encounter rate, I think. Like, this is more than I remember it ever being. Still, I don't mind because I can use the money. I might have to steal antidotes, actually. Here we go. Sabin sent you, didn't he? Who are you? Sabin? Is he here? You were the one sneaking around us the whole way up here, weren't you? And if I was? Well, it doesn't really matter who you are. I've got no plans to surrender. Woe is the day you met me. It'll be the last day of your lives. Okay, so this is a special fight. I can't defeat this boss. I literally can't. There's only one way to defeat... Well, there's two ways to defeat him, but only one of them is viable. Unless you're basically cheating. See, that's why I'm a little worried about this boss, is because he's got that multi-hit attack. And now we just have to deplete his HP to a certain point. Enough of this! I'll send you all to the great beyond. That's enough, Vargas! Ah, if it isn't Sabin. Why, Vargas? Why did you kill Master Duncan? How could you kill your own father? The fool snubbed me, his only son. He chose you as his successor. That's not true. Our master. It's true and you know it. It's written in that ugly sneer across your face. He wanted you to be his successor, not me. He knew you had the most potential. I'm sick of listening to your lies. I've got far more than just potential. Why don't you see for yourself? Ah, Sabin. My father was right to see so much in you. I guess there's no avoiding this. By fate made us train together, and now fate will send you to your doom. Literally, because he's going to inflict doom on me, which gives me a limited amount of time to defeat him, but I just have to do this. Ah, you already learned that technique? Vargas, if only you hadn't been so consumed by pride. Anyway, I wanted to get that over with in a hurry, because we only have an hour per video for this thing. But basically, Sabin has a combat system. His ability is the Blitz command, and basically you input commands like a fighting game, and that allows him to use different abilities that he can cast without using MP. But the risk is, if you input the command incorrectly, then the whole thing fails, and it's a massive pain in the ass to use sometimes. Sabin! Brother? Brother? You're his twin brother? His brother? At first I thought you were another one of Vargas's bears. You thought I was a bear? I guess I'll take that as a compliment. Anyway, Echo, what are you doing here? We're on our way to the Saber Mountains. To the Returner hideout, no doubt. So, the wheels are finally turning. I've been watching from a distance, hoping the world will come to its senses. The way things were going, I was afraid Figaro would end up as a puppet state. A means of striking back has presented itself. There will be no more playing lapdog to the Empire. I'm through with that act. Think a bear like me could be of any help? You join us? Sabin. I think Duncan would rest easier knowing his training helped bring peace to the world. Well then, let's get going. I'm trying to give them at least vaguely distinct voices. Just as an exercise in voice acting. Not that I'm much of a voice actor, but it's fun. Anyway, I can show you Sabin's combat system in this fight. So you select Blitz, you input a certain command. This time it was left, right, left. And when his turn comes up, hopefully he'll do a proper attack and he'll deal a crap ton of damage. And eventually he gets some incredibly powerful attacks that he can just kind of use anytime he wants. Which is another... He's not an overpowered character necessarily because you can fail the input. And it's really, especially the more powerful ones, there's a really high risk of you doing a wrong input and failing the entire attack and wasting your turn. But this is something I really like about the game is that, like, eventually the characters all become a little similar. Like, they all sort of... as I'll explain later once we get to it, there is a mechanic in the game that makes it so that a lot of the characters gain similar abilities over time, but there's also a very strong differentiation of their mechanics, like in terms of what they can do in combat and how they're useful. And what you saw there was I was about to input a blitz command, but then I thought better of it because I realized I'd made a mistake. And so I re-entered it, just to be sure. And the disadvantage of the blitz command is that you can't choose the target. Like, when you input the command, you say, do it, and then he just hits a random enemy, and you have no way to control who he hits. So that's... sometimes it can be kind of a liability to use in combat, which is another way that it gets balanced out a little bit. Like, that it's not so overpowered. Yeah, as I remember, one of the main reasons why in Final Fantasy VII, and indeed in Final Fantasy VIII, that you could only have 3 party members in a fight after Final Fantasy for quite a long time had a habit of letting you have 4 characters, was basically because, like, they couldn't get the PlayStation to cooperate with more than 3 player characters on the battlefield at one time. Like, they couldn't get enough power out of it. They couldn't optimize it. Until Final Fantasy IX, when they finally managed to do that. In Final Fantasy IX, if you ever played that on the original PS1, or even in its ports, it doesn't run at like 60 frames per second, let's put it that way. Like, it runs at a modest frame rate, shall we say. I'm gonna have to grind here a little bit. Because I do want to be an okay level and have a bit of money going into the next section. So you're just gonna have to bear with it. Let's see, where am I at? I'm at level, yeah, I want to get characters at least to level 11, 10, 11, 12 maybe. Because I can't keep coasting on luck. But yeah, the game, like, one of the ways that the Blitz ability is balanced well is because it is random. Like, there is that risk, there's these disadvantages. That's where Edgar is completely unbalanced, because there's no reason not to use those things all the time. Like, you can give him the best equipment in the game, and it's still gonna make more sense to use his tools a lot of the time. But yeah. Look at the detail on these backgrounds, by the way. Like, and again, I'm making it hard because I keep killing everything quickly, but we can look at that in the next fight, actually. I'll take a second to talk a little bit about the combat backgrounds, because they're actually really nice. I especially like the one here, in the grasslands area, because you got this lovely rendered grassland with all these rocks. You can see they repeat rocks. Like the ones right in front of the party in the lower right corner, and then the ones further out. They're repeated. They're like tiles, like we talked about in the Figaro Castle and stuff. There's lots of use of tiles in order to render this out more nicely, but you kind of do get the sense that you're almost looking at kind of a Bob Ross painting as the background for the fight. And something I really like is the levels that are in there, because like you have got the foreground level where the fighting is taking place, your characters, and then the enemies, and then like on the grassland. Then you've got a lake, and behind the lake, these trees that kind of border the lake, and then behind that, these hills with more trees, and then behind that, another long hill, and then mountains, and then mountains. Like, so you get this really deep space in the combat scene. Like, the backgrounds have this really deep visual space that gives that sense of largeness, even though this is the GBA version, which was always played on a very small screen, and even though everything has to be really compressed in order to fit on the SNES, and like all the characters are oversized because they have to be readable in the play space, you still get the sense of a big world sort of playing out behind them if you pay attention to it. And I quite like that. That's something that I remember as a kid playing games like Final Fantasy V and VI and indeed 7. I didn't know how to pay attention. Like, I didn't know how to pay attention to backgrounds and character art and character design and like visual aesthetic. I didn't know how to. And I didn't. Like, I mostly just, I read the text boxes and I looked at the numbers that popped up, and that was about as much as I took an interest. And I was like, oh, this summon spell is so cool because it makes a big explosion, yeah. But I didn't have the... It's not that I've become more mature. I mean, I have. But it's also that I've learned how to look at games and not ignore the parts that go into it. Like a video game like this, I've learned to appreciate how much work it takes and how much care and attention that has to be paid to things like the background in a... Like, you're gonna look at this combat scene 500 million times over the course of the game. Like, you're gonna look at this so much, so many times. And so it matters that it is really nice looking, like that the quality of the background is actually quite high. That matters because that helps it not get really old and annoying. Like, again, the encounter rate in this game is such that, yeah, it's gonna get... Are we there yet? No. How much are we gonna need? Okay. Might only get Terra to level 10. Like, there is care and attention, and there's a lot of skill. Like, a lot of craftsmanship went into designing the background for this battle scene. Like, there's a really good artist with a great sense of space and style and aesthetic who had to design this play space, and they also had to consider things like I said, they're reusing sprites for the rocks that are in the actual grassy field area. You can see them being repeated over and over again, which is a way to save space in the cartridge. Like, that's something else that the artists constantly have to keep in mind when making assets for a game like this, is that you have limited space to work with. You only have so much memory on a cartridge. So you have to compress everything as much as possible. Like, anytime you can reuse a little bit of something old to make something new, you have to do that in order to make it all fit onto the goddamn thing. And that's something that's, like, I'm not super well-versed in computer science. I don't know that much about, graphics and image compression and stuff like that. I really don't. But the stuff I do know, like, the little I do know about it, it really makes me... It makes me appreciate games like this a lot more, especially older games that are made with all these limitations, like all these millstones hanging around their feet to accomplish even a half of what they ultimately managed to accomplish is genuinely very, very impressive. Like, it's kind of a miracle sometimes, some games, how they are able to fit everything that they manage to fit on there. Because nowadays, like, that's something that's been talked about a little bit on games Twitter. It's like you get games that have like a 250 gigabyte download or something, like some completely... Okay, well, last encounter. Then like 250 gigabyte download. Like, you basically need to buy an entire external hard drive just to keep the install for some of these games on, because they're so bloated and so huge. And there isn't really the technological pressure anymore to compress, to reuse assets, to constantly trying to find ways to save space and save computing resources. Because there's this assumption that, oh, well, I mean, people can just add more memory, they can just do that. King Edgar, this way, please. And that's something I've always liked in all kinds of art, not just video games, but all kinds of art, is what do creative people do when they're presented with very hard limitations? King Edgar, this way, please. Like, how do you make something fit when there's no way to make it fit on a cartridge? Like, how do you communicate a certain aesthetic when you only have 256 colors to work with, for example? That kind of stuff. That's the stuff that really gets me going. As I remember, these chests do not get better equipment later on in the game, so we'll leave those alone. Bannon, we brought her with us.
So, this is the girl. The one to whom the Esper responded.
Esper? It seems the Empire had complete control over her.
Carrier pigeons have kept me informed. I also heard that she wiped out 50 Imperial soldiers in mere minutes.
No, it's not... Terra! For heaven's sake, Bannon, the girl doesn't remember anything.
Hiding from the truth won't change it.
Perhaps you've heard this story before?
Once, when people were still pure and innocent,
there was a box they were told never to open.
But someone went and opened it anyway, unleashing all the evils of the world. Pride, envy, greed, wrath, gluttony. The only thing that remained in the box was a single ray of light. Hope. Your powers is a gift, not a curse. No matter what happens, you must remember that. You are this world's last ray of light, our final hope.
Bannon.
I've grown weary with the hour. Allow me to rest a while.
Abrasive fellow, isn't he? The Empire stole someone important from me. I've hated it ever since. If no one stands up to the Empire, more people will be left like me. That's why I joined the Returners. But there's no one important in my life. I have no family. No friends. That's not true. And besides, I'm sure there are people who feel you're important to them. Those people are counting on you too. So Terra, we should probably talk about her at some point. She is the central character in Final Fantasy VI for the first half of the game-ish. And as the game goes on, she becomes less and less the focus, and more the focus broadens to a whole ensemble of characters. And it's one of the best bits of video game storytelling is the way that this game manages to really, really naturally actually go from a pretty stark focus on Terra as an audience POV character, basically. Like, she's the character who doesn't know what's going on. She's got amnesia, that old, storytelling trick, to including, like, the full arcs and stories of, like, a massive, honestly, cast of characters. And that's something that's so impressive because it kind of goes against conventional wisdom when it comes to a lot of storytelling, because it's not really structured. Like, the structure is so unusual. So Terra's main story serves as kind of a guiding thread throughout the whole narrative. Like, her nature, what's going to be happening to her, is an important aspect of how the game's story plays out, and her as a POV character is very much also the closest thing we have to an audience stand-in character, because her whole central thing is about finding a reason, as she just alluded to here. I have no one. I don't have family, I don't have friends, I don't have anything to fight for. So how can I be a ray of hope? How can I shoulder any kind of a burden or responsibility when there's no one there for me as such? And that's you. Like, that's the player, is like, you need to find a reason to care about this world, to care about what happens to the people who live in it. And like, so Terra kind of mirrors the player, especially in the early parts of the game, where we're also kind of trying to figure out, okay, what is this and why should I give a damn? I don't know what to tell you, but I do know that I trust my brother completely. He's always thought of my needs before his own, ever since we were little. I think you should trust him too. But don't tell him I said that. He'll turn red as a tomato. And that question of how to... I mean, there's a lot of themes going on in Final Fantasy VI. Like, it's a really rich game, honestly. But that theme of finding a way to shoulder the responsibility for things that you don't necessarily want to, but you kind of have to. That's all over this game, and how to deal with, like, when you have lost your purpose, how to find it again, and things like that. That's something that we're going to be talking about a lot, I sense, over the course of this playthrough. Okay, I think I know where we end this particular video. First, we're going to rest. Well, we are hitting the 55-minute mark, almost. I'm going to try and keep grinding to a minimum over the course of this series, just so that we don't have entire videos that are just walking back and forth and killing enemies repetitively. Or at least, if we're going to grind, I'm going to try and find something interesting to talk about while we grind. And I'm also going to try to remember to talk to everyone. Like, maybe not every single NPC, because some of them aren't interesting. It's not easy asking so much of you. And if we force our ideas on you, we're no different from the Empire, so we want you to decide for yourself. Okay, I'm just gonna save, and then we're gonna do one thing, and then we're gonna save again, and then we're gonna end this video. And as once again we get, okay, this is gonna be a theme over the course of these videos, apparently, the little save lag. Which I suspect happens because the emulator is saving the file to my hard drive, and it's taking it just a second to something, I don't know. Not a computer scientist again. Bannon, you went outside just a moment ago. Have you made your decision? Will you become our last ray of hope? So here is something I completely missed when I played this game for the first time. You can say no. And you can actually say no. Because I was used to from games like Final Fantasy 4 and 5 that, like, when you get a prompt like this, it's like you say no, and then they go, oh, please, but you must become our ray of hope, and then you have to say, and then you get that repeated over and over again. No matter how many times you say no, eventually you're gonna have to say yes, and there's nothing you can do about it. Not in this game. I see. And if you say yes, immediately, you get a certain item as a reward for that. But if you say no, I thought as much. A couple of times, well, something else happens. And the thing I missed, especially the first time around, because, like, I learned about this by reading a strategy guide, which told me, hey, you can get a different reward if you say no 3 times. And that item might be even better, is that saying no here is actually more true to Terra and her personality and her struggle. Which is like, she's being asked to shoulder so much of a burden, but at this point in her life, she can't actually do that. So, there's really no convincing you. She doesn't know how to shoulder that burden. And this cutscene that we get right here, her doubt, her self-doubt and her fear, you don't see that if you answer yes. At all. And you kind of miss out on this part of her personality a little bit. Hope. How could anyone put their hope in me? What's wrong? What's happened? Those wounds look awful. South Figaro. The Empire's taken South Figaro. We're headed this way. So, they found us. We haven't a moment to lose. Locke. I know, someone has to sneak into South Figaro to slow the enemy, right? This is right up your alley. We're counting on you. Terra, wait for me. I won't be gone long. And watch out for a certain lecherous young king who shall remain nameless. The guy moves in like a hawk. Locke! Okay. Old habits die hard, eh? What about us? We can escape down the Lethe River, or Leth, and make our way to Narsh. I'm curious about that Esper they found in the mines. Very well. I'll ready the raft by the back entrance. It's risky, but we don't have much of a choice at this point. It's not safe here. Come with us to Narsh. It could be your chance for you to gain a better understanding of your abilities. We've no time to dilly-dally. Let's make for Narsh! I understand your apprehension. But too many innocent lives are being lost to the Empire while we stand here and do nothing. Please, lend us your strength. This relic will help keep you safe. Genji Glove. That's a very powerful relic because it allows you to dual wield. You can have 2 weapons equipped at the same time, and you attack twice with every time you attack, and that can combo into something else later on in the game that just becomes ridiculously powerful. But you only get that if you answer no 3 times. Okay, I need to save because we need to end this video. But anyway, that's something I entirely missed early on. Is that I should probably also get him to the back line because that's where he belongs. Is that like that doubt is such a core part of who Terra is. And save glitch once again. That doubt is such a core part of who Terra is. It's core to her story and her narrative and her personal journey. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, please feel free to hit like, comment, and subscribe, and do all the YouTube things. I have a merchandise store, link to that in the description. I have a couple of tip jars, link to those in the description. I have a Patreon, link to that in the description. If you are so inclined, I would be very grateful for the support. But, you know, this is the second channel. It's okay. Head on over to the main channel and watch my higher effort content rather than these, enjoyable but very much self-indulgent Let's Plays. And feel free to leave some comments down below, letting me know if I should, talk less or something. Like if you have any feedback, like it's valuable to hear it. Anyway, thank you very much for watching.